What's up, everybody? My name is Josh LaFleur from Late to Start Piano. Today I'm going to be explaining to you why piano players hit a plateau. I would say usually this happens within maybe a year, maybe a year and 6 months. Somewhere in that range is where a lot of piano players hit this plateau and they feel like they're not really improving as much as they should be. They feel like they're not really improving the way that they want to be, and they just feel like they're kind of stuck in the same spot. So if that's you, then I'm going to be explaining to you why you're feeling like this and what you can do to resolve it. So point number one is you need to figure out if you're actually in the plateau. So this is the first point. Before you start sounding the emergency bells and you start sounding the alarms on yourself and you start freaking out, you need to ask yourself, are you really hitting a plateau, or is the progress coming, but just coming a little bit slow? So the best way you can do this is if you're working with a teacher. If you're working with a teacher, they're going to be able to tell you, okay, you're hit a plateau in these areas. Maybe it's sight reading and improvisation. You hit a plateau, but you are really good at this particular piece. You're really good technically, and you can move up and down the piano. You're still getting better at that, just as an example. If you don't have a teacher, then you need to figure out another way where you can measure your progress. So I would say the best way you can do this is either getting some kind of online community where you can share videos of yourself and you can get feedback. Even if you go somewhere like Reddit, I know there's pages on Reddit where people can get feedback, and usually they are pretty truthful about it. Usually they don't sugarcoat things, which is nice because that's what you're looking for. And if you can't do that or you don't want to do that, the next best thing, if you don't want to share your performing with anybody, is just to record yourself. So record yourself on week one and then record yourself 2 weeks later or a month later and see how that is that you're sounding. Is the sound good? See how it is that you look. Are you looking tense when you play? Are you looking pretty free? Things like that. So that's the first question you want to ask yourself is, are you actually hitting a plateau, or do you just think that you're hitting a plateau? Once we've decided that, yes, I've hit a plateau, my teacher told me, Reddit told me, I told myself I hit a plateau, that's when we're going to get into the reasonings next here as to why. So the first reason is, if you are at this plateau stage, number one reason why this is because you play instead of practice. Now, what do I mean by this? There is a big difference when it comes to playing versus practicing the piano. I would say way too many beginner piano players, they will try to play instead of practice. And practicing is when you are looking at something really granular and you have a goal or some kind of objective that you want to get done with your practice session. For example, let's say you are working on a piece of music and measures 1 through 10 you can play really well, you have no problem with. But then you hit measure 11. In measure 11, things start to fall apart. Maybe there's some kind of phrasing in there that's throwing you off. Maybe it has a really big chord in there and you can't quite reach that chord or something like that. Whatever it is, measure 11 is giving you a problem. Playing the piano would be, you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to work on this song today. And you play measure 1 through measure 10, then you hit measure 11, you make a mistake and you go back. Then you play measure 1, you play measure 10, you hit measure 11, you make a mistake and you go back. Then you kind of get bored of that, so you start playing a completely different song that you know and that you have really comfortable. Or maybe you take out your phone and you start scrolling and then you just wasted 20 minutes of your time. That is more of playing the piano. So basically playing is you play what you already know. So whether it's the beginning of the piece that you're working on, whether it's another completely separate piece that you already have down pat, if it's some kind of arpeggio that you know, you're just playing what you already know. Practicing the piano is working on those difficult sections. So just like in that previous example, we would be talking about measure 11. So when you're practicing, you don't need to work on what you already have down because you already have it down. So you don't need to start at the beginning. You don't need to go to measure 1. You can skip measures 1 through 10 and just start at measure 11. And you can break that down. So you can break it down in a half measure, in a quarter measure if you need to. You can do it note by note, one note at a time. But practicing the piano is very slow when you're doing it this way, and that's the way it should be. And it can be tedious because you don't know the piece yet, and it doesn't even sound like music because you're playing it so slowly and you don't really know it yet. But that's okay. That's what practicing is, and that's how you should be doing it. In every practice session, the majority of it should look like that. You have a specific objective in mind, you have a goal that you want to hit, and you're working on things that you don't know yet. As long as you have those pieces, then you are practicing the piano instead of practicing or instead of playing. Nothing wrong with playing. I usually have Sundays I practice every day. So Sundays is like my play day. I will do a lot of improvisation, a lot of ear training, and just play songs that I already know just to keep them fresh so I can always have them at will whenever I need to play something for somebody. That's my day on Sunday. Pretty much the whole thing. I just play the piano and have fun. Monday through Saturday is my practice time. So that's where we're getting deep into things that I'm working on. So that's one of the biggest reasons why you feel like you hit the plateau, and maybe you actually have hit the plateau because you're doing too much playing and not enough practicing. That was all point number one, by the way. Next point, when you hit this plateau, is you're not consistent. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, but basically if you're practicing for 2 hours on Monday, and then you only practice for 30 minutes on Tuesday, and then you practice for 10 minutes on Wednesday, you're not being consistent, and it's going to be very tough to make progress. Maybe you will make progress as long as you're at least doing it daily, but it's going to come to you very slowly. And if you're only practicing 2 times a week or 3 times a week or once a week, then you're basically wasting your time because it's not enough. You need to at least practice 4 days a week, 20 minutes per day at a minimum. Anything less than 4 days a week, 20 minutes per day, you're really not going to make any progress. Or if you do, it's going to be so small that it's going to seem like you're not making any, and you're going to have this feeling of frustration and feeling like you've hit this plateau. Next point is you don't work on the small things that make a big difference, okay? So maybe you are practicing, maybe you are being consistent, but we also have to keep in mind you need to be practicing the right things. So one of the ways you can do this is practice on small things that make a big difference. And the biggest small thing, quote unquote, that makes a huge difference is expression. So how are you playing the music, the dynamics, the articulations, the accents? Is it legato? Is it staccato? Things like that. And really to drill it down even more, number one biggest thing in terms of expression is dynamics. And dynamics is just how loud or soft you play a particular piece. And it also includes things like crescendos, diminuendos. So are you going louder progressively? Are you going softer progressively? And again, the overall volume that you're playing at. This is the biggest small thing that can make a huge difference because music is all about emotions. It's all about conveying how you feel. So if you're just playing the ink on the page and you can get all the notes correctly and your phrasing is good, your timing is good, but you have no expression, it's not going to sound that good even though you're hitting all the correct notes. It's the expression, the speeding up the tempo, slowing down the tempo, getting louder, getting softer, accenting certain notes, things like that. That's what conveys the emotion in your playing. And if you can get really good at that, at expressing the dynamics, then you're instantly going to become a lot better of a piano player because now you're going to be expressing a lot more emotion in your playing. It's a simple thing to understand. It's not always easy to do because it takes a lot of work because you have to have really good touch in your hands and in your fingers, especially if your right hand is at a different volume than your left hand. Then now it takes a lot of coordination as well. It's not really easy to do, but it's simple to understand, and it can be a huge difference maker in the way that you play the piano. Next point, again, I already talked about this a little bit, but if you don't have a teacher, this can be another problem for you when you hit that plateau. Because if you don't have a teacher, you kind of have to figure things out for yourself. You have to figure out what areas you have kind of maxed out at least for now, what areas need improvement, what areas you are good at, and you need to figure out your own plan as far as where you need to go from here. That's where a teacher comes in really helpful because they can point these things out to you so you're not wasting time trying to figure things out for yourself. and they can give you your entire practice routine laid out, and all you have to do is follow their instructions. So with all that said, hope you found that helpful. I do have a free guide on my website. That's 34 essential tips for you to start playing the piano right now if you are brand new. Link is down below in the description to get that. I am also offering lessons right now via Zoom. To get started with those, send me an email down below, and we'll make sure that you have a specific plan in mind, make sure that you don't hit any plateaus, and we'll have you playing the piano the way you always wanted to. To get started with that, send me an email. Link is down below. My name is Josh LaFleur, and happy practicing.